The 24th of September this year, more than 700 people they died during a religious ritual in Mecca. The religious ritual is a Muslim ritual called the Hajj. Unfortunately, that's not the first time that hundreds of people have been stomped to death during this religious ritual. I'm gonna be examining why people they do the Hajj, how they do it, and why it can be dangerous at times. Now, why would people do this religious ritual if there is a danger? Actually, it can be so dangerous that it might cost you your life. I believe that Muslims they come from all over the world to Mecca to perform this ritual because it shows a certain devotion to Islam, and they are willing to risk their life at this devotion. So in order to examine this, I will be going through the circumstances regarding the Hajj. I'll be going through the steps of the Hajj, then the result of the Hajj, the spiritual result that a lot of Muslims they experience, and then lastly, the problems and difficulties that the Saudi Arabian government they have in doing with a big crowd. You have to do a mass control of that crowd. So we will be examining some of those things. So the first step I will take here in this speech, I will be going through the circumstances regarding the Hajj. Now, what we ought to know about the Hajj is that it is first of all a religious ritual. So it's a pilgrimage that Muslims they do. And it takes place in Saudi Arabia, in the city of Mecca. And people they come from all over the world to practice and complete the Hajj. Then also we ought to know that there's 2 to 3 million people doing the Hajj each year. The numbers have been growing a lot lately, and we see more and more women doing the Hajj nowadays. It's actually up to 50% of the pilgrims are actually women. Then another thing we ought to know about the Hajj is that it's a religious ritual, which means that in Muslim faith they have 5 pillars, and the Hajj is the 5th pillar. So before the Hajj, there are 4 other pillars that a Muslim have to practice. So that the first of it being the declaration of faith, where they declare their faith in Allah. And the second one is the continuous prayer. They do 5 prayers a day. And the third one is called zakat, which is alms or charity, where they give 2.5% of their income typically. And the fourth is referred to as Ramadan, the fast. And those are the 4 pillars that come before the Hajj. So the 5th one, the Hajj, when they complete that, they have completed the 5 pillars of Islam. Then we also ought to know that the Hajj is loosely described in the Quran, but what has been described is the month in which it happens, which is called Dual Hajj, and that is the Islamic month that this year had covered the end of September. So that are the circumstances of the Hajj. Now I'll be going through the steps of the Hajj. And of course, as I said, people they travel from all over the world to come and do the Hajj. But that means that they'll have to travel into the airport of Mecca. So what people do is that when they arrive at the airport, they'll typically find a hotel or somewhere in the area where they can change and do the cleansing, where they put on white robes. And these robes will not have any pockets or anything like that. It's very clean. And after they've done that, during the Hajj, they can't fight, they can't get in arguments, they can't cut their hair, cut their nails, anything like that. It's a clean process that is only to be in devout prayer. So they'll travel to the mosque in Mecca from their cleansing and putting on their robes. And they'll do what's called the tawaf, which is 7 times they walk around the Kaaba, which is a square black linen that covers a meteor that they believe has spiritual powers. So they walk around the Kaaba, and after doing that for 7 times, they then they bow, or they touch the Kaaba, or they kiss the Kaaba. So when they've done that, they've finished the first tawaf. Then they go outside of Mecca and they do 7 runs between 2 of the hills outside, which signifies or is in remembrance of Hagar and how she was running for water for Ismail. So they do that in remembrance of her struggle. That's the first day of the Hajj. Then on the 9th day, they go to Arafat, and in Arafat they go out into the hill of Arafat, and they bring a tent because they're going to be praying all day and it gets really hot there. So they bring a tent and then they go into prayer. So at sunset, you will see 2 to 3 million tents being uprooted and brought into cars, and then they take off and they go to a city that I don't remember the name of, so I'll have to look that up really quickly. It is called, let's see here, it is called Muzdalifa, and that's where they stay overnight. So that has completed the 9th day now. On the 10th day, they go to Mina, a city in the area, where they do a sacrifice. And they sacrifice an animal typically. And after sacrificing an animal there, they will go outside, and there's 3 pillars, stone pillars there. And they would bring 21 rocks, and at each of these pillars, they'd be throwing 7 rocks. And the pillars, they represent the devil and sin. So they'll be throwing that in a sign or a way of showing that they're cleansing themselves and it's a turning point in their lives. So when they've done that, they then typically return to Mecca, and they repeat the tawaf one more time, where they walk around the Kaaba and touch it or kiss it or bow to it. And at the end of that, they have officially actually done everything that the Hajj it wants them to do. So most Muslims, they will finish there. Some keep doing some of these steps, but after finishing the Hajj, they will typically bust their hair really short and cut their beards. That's for the men. And that has then completed the Hajj. So now let's talk about some of the results that a lot of Muslims they experience from the Hajj. And some call it the turning point in their life, and some liken it to a baptism, that it is given them a rebirth of some sort to their devotion to Allah and to Islam. And we can liken it to a sort of baptism, especially if you look at the Amish faith and the way that they do baptism. Up until they have chosen to be baptized into the Amish faith, the Amish people, they will allow their kids to actually do what they want to. But as soon as they have been baptized into the Amish faith, they will then take on all the obligations and requirements that are in the Amish faith. And that way we can liken the Amish baptism to the Hajj, because a lot of Muslims, they experience a rebirth, a cleansing of sins, and now they live as more devoted and strict Muslims. So that's the spiritual result that a lot of Muslims they experience from the Hajj. So now that we've gone through the circumstances regarding the Hajj, we've gone through the steps of the Hajj and the typical spiritual result that Muslims they experience from the Hajj, we should look at the difficulty that there is in crowd control when you have 2 to 3 million people coming from everywhere in the world. Of course, the first step is you have a lot of different languages and ethnicities gathered in one place, trying to complete the same ritual. That will cause maybe conflict, confusion, especially when people don't speak the same language. So that can be a huge problem for the Saudi Arabian government that offer the security at the Kaaba at the time of year. Another experience or problem that the government they have is when people they come, as I said, they have linens on and they don't have pockets in them, so they can't carry identification cards. So all of a sudden you have 2 million people without identification on them. So in cases of stompings or people dying, experiencing illness, it can be really, really hard to identify who the person actually is and where they're from. So another problem can be the actual clothing. When you have very long robes on and all of a sudden everyone starts panicking and trying to escape the Kaaba and the mosque, you will have a lot of people going at the exits, but having the robes on, it can be easy to step on the person in front of you and then pull them down that way. So these linens are not really designed for physical activities or flexibility, which can also be one of the problems. So in conclusion, we've looked at the Hajj and why people do the Hajj, the requirements of the Hajj, and also the steps of the Hajj, but we also looked at some of the issues and the danger that there's in Hajj. I believe that, as I said earlier, that people, they do it to show their devotion to Islam and to Allah. So we can conclude that it is a spiritual experience that a lot of Muslims they have during their lives. Actually, not all Muslims they complete the Hajj. Actually, a low percentage of Muslims they complete the Hajj because of the exceptions there are. If you are financially unable to do it or physically unable to do it, you should not complete the Hajj. So there's only a lower percentage of Muslims that complete the Hajj. But those who do it, they experience a devout life from that turning point in their life, and that is why people, Muslims, they continue to do the Hajj even though it might cost them their lives.